Hello. Welcome to my reading. This is just a story that I wrote. It's called Trapped in the Game, an NPC survival story. It's 80,000 words or so. I'll get into some of it today. Hope you enjoy. The game had been out for years. Cosmos. It was a revolution in virtual reality technology, allowing players to enter a galaxy's worth of worlds. Powered by a quantum computer, Cosmos was fleshed out with dynamic populations of AI run non player characters, NPC for short. Koluna had been with the game since it first launched. He excelled at lore hunting, the gathering of secrets across the many worlds of Cosmos. Well into the sixth expansion, Cole has built a thriving business of running avatars through the complex quest lines that provide great rewards for those with the skill to attain them. Before logging out for a break, Cole is stopped by another player. Cole, Cole Luna. The man the man's avatar looks the pretty woman over. Her attire is functional business wear, a style favored by lifestyle specialists who don't get their hands dirty fighting monsters. Behind her, a hovering camera bot is capturing the moment of their meeting. Yeah, Cole says. That's me. The pretty journalist smiles. I'm glad I caught you. I've been wanting to meet you for a while. Cole nods. I don't do interviews. The journalist is unperturbed by Cole's dismissiveness. Mr. Luna, you may not be aware of it, but you have a certain reputation in the gaming community. You're a legend, some might say. Cole shrugs. Thank you. Goodbye. His words escape him as he turns away. Hurriedly, the woman rushes around to face him again, her camera ever hovering in observation of him. Mr. Luna, before you go, can you give us your thoughts on the coming software patch? Perhaps illuminate some key quest lines and the future of Cosmos. Cole sighs. If you want information like that, you should commission me. But my queue is backed up as is. The reporter's lips twitch. Just a small fact would be enough. Cole looks at the woman. There are many players like her, sleuths who have a social media influence, dissecting the elements of Cosmos. Most do their own footwork. And yet here she is, asking for a free lunch. Cole frowns. A shadow is falling on the worlds of Cosmos, a swarm, even. The great powers across the galaxy will be as wheat before the locust. As Cole finishes his statement, he observes the confused expression on the reporter's face. Before she can recover, he uses the drop down display on his HUD to log out. His consciousness slowly returns to the world, and his eyes open to look through the visor of his full dive headset. He's spent a decade in the game, only living to sleep and feed himself. Cole's limbs are skinny, yet not quite anorexic. He doesn't get much exercise in the real world. Cole sits up and removes the headset. I wonder if I should move on. His words display a fatigue that can only come after a long period of hard work. He checks his phone and sees a notification for a new commission. The details are vague, but then few players want to give away their secrets up front. Thinking little of it, Cole confirms his participation and goes to the kitchen to throw something in the microwave before eating it. The meal is both tasty and bland at the same time, just a cheap frozen meal. With little left to do in the real world and his appetite satiated, Cole returns to his bed where the headset waits for him. Cole puts it on and lies down. As the system whirs into action, Cole feels the lethargy that comes with the full dive process. Just before losing consciousness, he feels the system grow louder and louder, far louder than it should be. Alarm flares in his dying consciousness before a current of electricity courses through his body, causing it to spasm wildly. If he could move his limbs, he'd throw away the defective headset, but his mind is lost in a moment. Cole awakens in a dark environment. His body rests in a sturdy black chair. His arms and legs are restrained. His mind tries to understand what has happened. He fears that something went wrong with his login, but his mind collects itself. He's not dead, but what is this place? The character he was going to play was in the middle of a faction city. None of the characters he plays should be trapped in a chair like the one he currently sits in. With a thought, he conjures the system's heads up display. Character data is listed overlaid upon his field of vision. Character name, Cole Luna. Class, undefined. Experience, 0. Evolutionary rating, G. The last item, the evolutionary rating, causes his brow to twitch. Even the weakest players are at least rated as E. He never he's never heard of such a weak player. Stru- Shrugging internally, Cole uses the menu to access the logout option. The words log out are gray and unselectable. After a moment of looking at the grayed out words, a certain sense of panic stirs in the man's heart. The fact that he's restrained is suddenly terrifying. His mind races as he looks around as much as he's able. Just beyond his vision, in the darkness, a pair of eyes shine. Cole shudders involuntarily. The eyes draw closer, and the white of a woman's thighs catch in the dark. A beautiful woman with ample breasts and raven black hair walks up to the imprisoned man. Her dress is pristine red, with a slit running down both legs. Her eyes are deep amber, a golden predatory color. Her face is beautiful, a deep amber, a golden predatory color. Her face is beautiful, but a deep scowl masks its beauty. The woman stands before Cole, looking at him with contempt. Is this what could be called success? She asks the air. Cole feels his body shiver under the fearsome woman. It's not a feeling that touches his soul. Rather, it is a physical response to someone with a much higher evolutionary rating. It's difficult to say, but Cole assumes her rating to be D or even C. For a G rank like him, it's like being a toddler in front of a hungry lion, and bound as he is, his chances of survival would be even lower. Despite his quivering body, Cole's eyes meet those of the intimidating woman. Her eyes narrow as she meets the rebellious look. Her hand is a blur as it slaps across his face. Blood flows from his nose as the woman grips him by the jaw with her deceptively slender fingers. Should we go again? She asks with venom. Cole doesn't know what she's referring to, but he knows whatever it is, it isn't something he wants to experience. His eyes lower and he tries to shake his head. A satisfied smirk curves her lips upward. The woman wipes his blood off her hand with his shirt. Take him back to his room. As she speaks the words, a pair of ugly men move out of the darkness and release Cole from his restraints. As he stands, he falls to his knees. Get up, acolyte, one of the men says with a kick to Cole's side. With effort, Cole stands and begins to walk. The beautiful, disdainful woman watches with mild interest as he is led out of the scary room. Beyond the room are stone hallways with many other rooms. The further away Cole is led, the more bizarre the sounds coming from the barred up rooms become. Finally, Cole is pushed into a bleak stone room. Not even a window graces the dark tomb. As he's locked in, Cole panics once again. No matter how he tries to exit the game, he can't. Thinking over his situation, he returns to scanning the menu options. Fortunately for him, the forum function is available through the system. Cole opens a forum thread for bugs and other maintenance issues players may need help with. Immediately, Cole types out a ticket for the admins to help. Fuck! He almost screams the curse as the menu reads an error when he tries to post about his issue. Repeated efforts on other threads throughout the forum turn up only errors. Before he can drown in despair, Cole notices something odd. Most of the threads throughout the forum are celebratory. Unknown King. Greetings, fellows of the cosmos. Welcome to the launch. Butterfly. Woo, OG gangster right here. Our guild, Twilight Ride, is recruiting. Post if you want to join. Anonymous. Go recruit on your own planet's forums. There's no point in doing it on the general forum. Just a sword. +1. The number of comments floods the screen, and one thing is obvious. This isn't the sixth expansion of Cosmos. It's the launch of the base game. Cole breathes out heavily. This is not happening. This can't be happening. He repeats the words as a mantra, wishing they were true. Inevitably, the silence of his prison turns numbing. Vague cries and moans break out at random intervals, causing Cole to jerk at times. Fortunately, he has the forum to preoccupy himself in the tedium of his room. It's all rather happy for the other players. Even if they find themselves in a bad spot, they just log out and go about their lives. But there's no logging out for Cole. And even if there was, would he be in the body would he be in his body from a decade ago? Time travel's not real, he tries to convince himself. This has to be a prank, but who would or even could pull off a prank like this? Maybe Cosmos itself is messing with him. System, Cole says evenly. What is going on? As a sentient algorithm, the system of Cosmos has a certain degree of communication it is capable of expressing. Cole waits for a moment before the algorithm responds. NPC Cole Luna has been captured by the Red Sect, given the designation of Acolyte of the Red Sect. Cole Luna is the subject of inhuman experiments to summon otherworldly entities into the vessel of the Acolyte. Cole's brow tightens. The Red Sect, he questions. The system continues. The Red Sect of Planet Rune is a chaotic evil cult bent on the corruption of the living. The Red Sect is opposed by the world governments of Planet Rune. Cole sighs. Those fanatics. Cole searches his memories for the planet Rune. During the early days of Cosmos, Rune was a beginner world where players would start, level up, and eventually venture from and into the wider galaxy beyond. The player base during the early days of Cosmos was in the millions, but would grow to hundreds of millions as the expansions rolled on. Right now, the starting worlds should be about a dozen. Each world tends to have a certain style of classes and environments. Some planets favor machine technology, some favor physical combat classes, others holy and evil magics. Rune happened to be a world of magic with limited technological advances. Cole tries to process everything that's going on, but realizes that he can't. System, he says. Force log out for Cole Luna. Command not recognized. Cole grits his teeth. Why? The system waits a moment before stating, Cole Luna is not a player character. Fuck, he screams his frustration. Cole begins beating his head against a wall. As the hours press on, Cole scans the forums, paces his cell, and screams at the system. The stoic Cole Luna that he had been before is unraveling. Nothing seems to work. He doesn't even have a class. Instead, he's an NPC, a goddamned non player character, just a mob, a throwaway character that the player passes as they go on to face their adventure. Without even a pillow in the cold cell, Cole eventually finds sleep. Consciousness comes to Cole violently. A pair of ugly men kick him awake. Get up, acolyte. Cole feels anger build up in him, but submits to their command. Soon, Cole is ushered into the room with the black chair. Immediately upon seeing the chair, Cole freezes. He's pushed forward and forced into it. His resistance is futile, and soon he's bound once more. He is left in the darkness of the room for some time. As his body grows uncomfortable in its stationary position, Cole has time to contemplate his situation. The Red Sect is deeply tied to demon worship and summoning. By his expectations, they're trying to put a demon in his body. As the thought comes over his mind, he wonders if this is how his future self got summoned here. But none of that makes any scientific sense. None of this makes sense. As he gets lost in thought, he notices the glimmer of two eyes. Cole's breath catches as the woman in the red dress approaches. Acolyte, she says. What are you? Cole's mind is torn. The question is a trap, but he can only grit his teeth and say what she wants to hear. I am an acolyte of the Red Sect. Her eyes narrow. Yes, yes, you are. Tell me, she commands. What demon do you have inside you? I. I don't know. The beautiful woman, whose slender fingers bind like a vice, grips Cole by the throat. He tries to breathe, but can't. As the seconds tick by, Cole's lungs begin to convulse and burn. The pain of suffocation builds, causing tears to build in his eyes as he suffers. The misery brings him to the doorway of death. But as if bored, the woman releases him. Cole gags and heaves as he takes air back into his lungs. It takes some time for the noisy breathing to mellow. The woman in the red dress looks over him with mild interest. How did you retain your mind, acolyte? Cole feels tears pour down from his eyes as he shakes his head. I don't know. She continues to question him on subjects he knows nothing of. Your demon is weak, she finally says. I doubt you will accomplish much, but even so, the summoning was successful. She seems to ponder something for a moment. We will begin your indoctrination tomorrow. Rest for now. Her words should have been a relief, but the word indoctrination disturbs him. Indoctrination is a common practice for evil factions. It's not just a figurative indoctrination, it affects the mind attributes and can be impossible to break without the proper stats or stat buffs. As Cole is led to his cell, he pulls up his stats list. Name, Cole Luna, strength 1, agility 1, stamina 1, mind 1, potential points 0. As he looks at his abysmal stats, he sees his potential points. These could be earned through actions like crafting and combat, among many other tasks. With the indoctrination coming tomorrow, Cole would need at least 5 points in his mind stat. This means he needs to get 4 potential points before then. But there's nothing available to him. In this prison, there are no resources, only crumbling stone and a bucket. As despair deepens, or as despair threatens to overwhelm him, Cole's eyes land on a loosened rock on the wall. In Cole's long and varied career in Cosmos, he's played he'd played many roles and studied many of the professions in the game. The profession he liked most was also the simplest, at least in the early stages: engraving. To engrave is to carve a pattern into an object. All one needs is an engraving tool and a surface. The thing that makes engraving difficult is the pattern one seeks to carve. One needs blueprints to study and learn. Developing the skill into a meaningful profession takes much work. For a new player, one would need to buy a blueprint, but Cole always had a good memory for the professions of Cosmos. He'd long studied beginner and master level engraving. With trembling hands, Cole begins to push and pull on a crumbling stone. The stone is even looser than he thought, and a chunk of jagged rock comes away to fit comfortably in his hand. With a deep breath, Cole takes the stone tool to a corner of the room. His hand still trembling, Cole begins to carve a magic circle into the stone wall. Then lines and cuneiform like notches. With a breath, he cuts the final piece, and a system alarm rings out. Successful engraving. NPC Cole Luna is awarded 500 experience. NPC Cole Luna is awarded 1 potential point. Cole clutches the stone till his fingers turn white. In haste, he puts the point into mind. Mind, 2. Just by putting a single point into mind, Cole feels his consciousness grow sharper. His fear and weakness are less overwhelming, but not gone. He is still a long way from feeling comfortable with the situation. In earnest, he continues his work. XP plus 500, XP plus 500, XP plus 500. He repeats the process over and over, gaining XP every time. But the precious potential points only pop up infrequently. Without knowing day from night in his prison, Cole feels his bones and muscles ache as he completes his latest engraving. Huff, he sighs. Finally. Mind 5. He's managed to reach the necessary mind stat to survive the indoctrination. Hopefully, at least. Additionally, his undefined class has been designated engraver. The rock implement is little more than powder in his hands, but he's managed to overcome this hurdle. As if having waited for him to complete his task, the cell door opens. Tired and sore, Cole drops the stone and follows the familiar men. This time they don't go to the room with the black chair. Instead, he's led up a flight of stairs and into a great hall. At the end of the hall is a grotesque statue shaped like a Baphomet. Terrible horns rise from the goat's head. A man's body and various bestial traits seem to express the red sect's aesthetic value. Psychological damage received. Checking resistances. The system analyzes the data. Resistance threshold exceeds damage. No damage received. Cole sighs in relief, but thinks better than to let his guards see his comfort. As his eyes scan the great hall of the Baphomet, he sees other figures, each entranced by the statue. Many of the men and women look as miserable as he. Other acolytes he suspects. Not wanting to stand out, Cole continues to stare at the statue. The system continuously registers the psychological damage and his resistance. As the hours wear on, Cole receives experience points and a few potential points for enduring the statue's mystical effect. Rather than investing the points into mind, he puts them into stamina. With the long night of work and the exhausting presence of the Baphomet, his feeble stats are in desperate need of diversity. Strength 11, or Strength 1, Agility 1, Stamina 4, Mind 5. The day mercifully ends, and Cole is returned to his gloomy tomb. Much as he wants to continue his engraving, exhaustion overwhelms him. System, he says as he falls to the floor. Wake me up in 4 hours. Understood, is the system's answer. He awakens to an alarm only he can hear. Fortunately, as an NPC, he still has many of the functions of the system that players have. Despite surviving the indoctrination, Cole's mood is low. Checking the forums for new information, Cole can't help but feel jealous. The players are all on adventures of their own. Even those captured by a faction can't contain their excitement to see what will happen next. The worst that can happen is a player dies and is respawned, but NPCs don't come back to life when they're killed, and Cole doesn't want to test what will happen to him if he dies. Cole blows out a breath as he grabs a fresh stone shard and begins engraving into the wall. Initially, Cole only wanted to engrave sigils that would boost his potential points, but it didn't take much to adjust his strategy. Cole begins carving sigils of power into the wall. With himself as the focal point of the arcane empowerment, each new engraving boosts his stamina and health recovery while he remains nearby. The hours carry on with the steady sound of stone cutting stone. His experience points kept rising at a steady pace. Unlike most games where experience points boosted a class level, Cosmos used XP to invest in training the player's techniques and abilities. With his class engraver, Cole unlocked a few abilities. Sharpen improves cutting power of engraver's implement. Identify weakness. A sharp eye can recognize fragility. Steady hand. Engraver is certain of where they cut. Cole dumps all his XP into Sharpen and brings it up to the third level. The process of engraving grows easier with the new skills, and with the sigils in the cell, Cole feels himself grow more comfortable. Unfortunately, comfort in this place is fleeting. The door opens once more, and Cole is taken back to the great hall of the Baphomet. The psychological indoctrination doesn't last the whole day this time. It's more a matter of reinforcement. Afterward, Cole is taken to a room that looks like a lecture hall. Other acolytes sit in seats, their guards absent, save two powerful looking men at the entrance to the room. The men and women seated throughout the room have various expressions on their faces. Some seemed blissful and delighted to be there. Others were more bestial and looked ready to bite someone. And perhaps the scariest of all are the ones with cold and calculating expressions on their faces. Every eye finds him on his entrance, and Cole feels himself swallow the lump in his throat. With a deep breath, Cole moves to a chair and sits down like the rest of the acolytes. He makes an effort to not look at any of the people around him. After some time, a man in a red robe enters the classroom. His eyes scan the women and men. Glory to the Crimson God. His words stir the acolytes. Glory to the Crimson God. Cole joins in for fear of being out of harmony in this dangerous place. I must congratulate you, acolytes, the man says. You have survived the trials and become peers among us. The lecturer looks over the gathering with indifferent eyes. That said, you are the weakest and lowest among our brethren. Barely worth the time it takes to train you. Most of you will be dead within a year. The worthy and the unworthy cannot share the same sky. So do not waste my time. Learn what I teach you and practice it for the glory of the Red Sect and our God. Cole looks around the room. A fanatical desire stirs in the acolytes. Even the cold and calculating students seem tense and with excitement. Now, the lecturer says, who can summon their demon? Cole feels his stomach turn. Was he supposed to summon a demon? As far as he understood, he was his own demon. As Cole is caught up in his uncertainty, an enthusiastic young woman with a crazy glint in her eye raises her hand in earnest. The lecturer nods. Come forward. The woman is bubbly with excitement. Go ahead, the red robed lecturer says. The woman extends a hand and summons a magical circle on the floor before her. The circle glows with a twisting purple and red light. From it, a small creature with ugly yellow skin and pointy ears rises. Cole recognizes it as a warlock's first summoned demon, a low level damage dealer with high mobility and the ability to throw fireballs. The young woman stands proudly over her demon. The lecturer sighs. Acceptable, but hardly impressive. Go back to your seat. The woman's excitement is dampened under the critical response she receives. Anyone else? The lecturer asks. The calculating people don't volunteer, preferring not to show their level to those they view as competition. But the bestial fellows stand up. Fierce looks are exchanged as the alpha of the group is decided. Finally, an angry guy, several heads taller than Cole, strides to the front of the room and summons a savage looking magic circle. A hellhound that would come up to Cole's shoulder bares its fangs at the acolytes. The giant of a man pats the beast on the head, but the beast does nothing to hide its aggression. The lecturer nods. Still conventional, but certainly an impressive demon. Go back to your seat. As the man returns with his beast, the hellhound bares its fangs at the little imp who hides behind its mistress's leg. The young woman frowns at the giant pair but says nothing. When everyone is settled, the lecturer continues. The Red Sect finds its power in the demons of fell corruption. Our priests can summon hordes of these monsters. Do not feel proud of your singular summons. Another of our specializations is in blood magic. The heresy of the light considers blood magic a greater evil than even demonology, but they do not understand the soul as we do. They would imprison the soul in the body, whereas we use the medium of the soul, blood, to write our will into the world. As the lecturer continues, Cole hears many things he'd already known from playing these paths over the years he'd been playing Cosmos. The lecture carries on for some time before the red robed man makes his closing remarks. Now that you've been instructed on the basics, you are free to explore the temple. I warn you that there are many places here that you are not permitted entry. You only get this warning once. Trespassing where you are not allowed will result in your death. Go. With that, the man leaves the room. Cole watches as the man with the hellhound gets up and exits the room, a violent look on his face as he gazes over his shoulder before continuing. Others leave hastily. Cole waits for a minute before also vacating the room. The vanishing figures each go their own way. The temple is a maze of corridors, and Cole has difficulty finding his way back to his accursed tomb. But he thinks it best to ground himself before exploring. Even so, Cole feels his stomach tremble. With all the fear and anxious labor, Cole realizes he hasn't eaten since he'd arrived in this temple. With an effort to remember his starting point, Cole leaves the room in search of food. The maze of the temple turns out to have a more simple layout than Cole had first assumed. The great hall of the Baphomet is at the center, with corridors leading out to a grand stairway leading down into the valley. The valley is covered in rust red soil that gives the region a red aura as the sun slips downward in the sky. On the stairway, many men and women of differing status go about their business. Some move in groups, but most act independently. At the base of the stairway, vendors set up shops, varying from food to armor and weapons. The aroma of roasted meat draws Cole to a man grilling unknown meat over a small fire. The cook's mean eyes glare at Cole. 12 silver per kebab. Cole sighs and turns away. He had to think. If they use the standard copper, silver, and gold currency system, then he could earn money by performing quests. In Cosmos, quests aren't something that advertise themselves. Most of the time, you have to investigate. But in starting zones like this, a primary quest giver wouldn't be hard to identify. After scanning the crowd, he sees a woman in a red robe, like that of the instructor. Greetings, priestess, Cole says with feigned piety. The woman looks him over. Acolyte, she says. Do you seek a task? Cole nods. I do, priestess. She lets out a breath. The light is dying, as will you if you venture too far into the valley before nightfall. She looks into the valley. The valley is plagued with gophers. They're mere pests, but it would serve the temple to have their numbers culled. For every 10 you slay, you will be rewarded. Cole blinks a few times. For such a scary faction, this first task just doesn't seem to fit the image. Shrugging, Cole moves out into the valley. The best weapon he can manage is a sharp stone he found close to the base of the stairway. Other members of the Red Sect come and go while Cole sneaks up on a communal gopher territory. The critters pop out of their burrows from time to time. After watching their movements for a while, Cole decides to act. He rushes a burrow as a gopher jumps up. The effort is wasted as the gopher simply dives into its hole and is gone. Cole's eyes watch the varmints looking at him from the safety of their holes. He's tempted to throw his rock at the gophers, but knows it would be in vain. Truth is, Cole's stats are too imbalanced to be physically capable. His strength and agility stats are both at the base 1, but Cole already has a plan. He walks to one end of the gopher burrow and begins engraving a series of symbols into the ground. Moving around the field, Cole carves the sigil of fire into various places. When the final piece of his array is finished, Cole activates it and sets the field ablaze, both above and below. A quest counter ticks the number of gophers that die at 53. Cole looks over his work. Recovering the corpses would be impossible, but the only thing he needed was for the quest to recognize his kills. Wiping the sweat from his face, Cole returns to the Red Priestess. The woman cocks her head to the side and looks at Cole. I did not expect you to succeed so quickly or proficiently. You have my gratitude. Take your reward. Silver and copper coins appear in Cole's ethereal wallet. He can easily see the money listed on his HUD. Along with the money came a significant amount of XP that he uses to upgrade the steady hand skill to the 3rd level. Cole finishes his use of the menu and moves over to the unfriendly cook. He exchanges the silver for a few kebabs. In addition to the food, Cole finds his way to the well of the temple and buys a canteen from a vendor before filling the container. With relief, Cole watches the sun fall beyond the horizon. For the first time since his whole ordeal began, he thinks he might be able to survive. Well, that is chapter 1. I have more. But that'll have to wait until tomorrow. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. You have a good night.